Welcome to doing biographical studies with Logos 4, and we're going to focus in on the majority of the time with the Apostle Paul, though we will use Joseph a couple times in the Old Testament just so I can have some Old Testament examples. And this is really one of those topics that I like doing because it's something that is important to know how to do, but it's not something we do on a regular basis. And so much of the New Testament has these specific individuals, and it's amazing what we can learn when we piece together their whole life. And Paul's an exception because there's probably more about him than anybody else next to Christ or God, of course. And so it's going to open up some interesting opportunities that may not always be available with certain individuals named in the Bible. So that's why I picked Paul, and we'll do a little bit like I said with Joseph. This is the third Monday of the month, and we're at May 21st. You can see some exciting webinars yet ahead. We're almost halfway through the year, which is hard to believe. And there's free training 3 times a month, just to remind you, the first Monday of every month. That next one will be Monday, June 4th, and we'll be studying important doctrine with Logos 4, how to study the one another's. Then the third Monday of the month, that'll be a month from now, is the foundations of Greek word study, understanding the verbs, and specifically morphology. So we're going to get into a little bit of Greek training for you. And then the fourth Monday of every month, now this is June 25th, this isn't next week, is Mastering Your Library, and we're specifically going to focus on commentaries. So very excited about those opportunities. You can sign up for these webinars at LearnLogos.com/webinar. And remember, webinar is always free live to attend, and then it's just $5 to download. As you can see here, we discount it 50% off for you for attending, and so that's a great value there. If you haven't had a chance to get the training CDs, I really recommend it. It's a completely different training experience. I like to think of the CDs as the foundation to your Learn Logos. So the orange and green CD are going to walk you through every single feature in Logos 4. And in fact, we're updated to 4.5. The blue CDs are going to show you how to apply those features for the purpose of studying the Bible and teaching. So whether you're a Sunday school teacher or a pastor, there's some great exercises. We're going to walk you through from prayer to the proposition, show you how to proclaim God's Word each step along the way. And this combines 2 discs. So one disc is going to be an overview of key resources for each section or each step in the Bible study process, and then some Bible study lectures. The second disc will actually give you specific exercises to train you to study the Bible. The training CDs are interactive and non-interactive, which means it's at your pace, it's very steady, it's very guided, very controlled. There's no interruptions with questions and things like that. And it's a real good complement to the webinars, which is very topical based, and we go off on different tangents and things like that. In the webinar, I'm just going to be doing a lot of things, not necessarily stopping every place to show you every thing I'm clicking on, though you'll see everything that I do. Whereas the training CDs, very detailed, and it is the most comprehensive training on the internet and the most affordable. With 17 hours of training, over 305 videos, it is an incredible value. So we'll email you the link for the webinar in the next 24 to 48 hours, but you can go online right now at LearnLogos.com and order those training CDs. They come in a download format, a DVD-only format, or you can do both. Okay, so tonight's seminar topics, what are we going to be doing? Well, first we're going to talk about the types of biographies that you can do in Logos. And there's really 2 basic types. Then we're going to overview some key biographical resources. So overview of key biographical resources. And some of these you're going to expect, like dictionaries and encyclopedias, but there are some surprises in the Logos library that some of these resources are really invaluable and important to have for doing these kind of studies. Also, we'll talk about 3 key tools, specialized tools in Logos. Then we're going to actually get into how to research a person. And there's 9 key areas that we're going to explore in this webinar tonight. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to organize your information 5 ways. Now, it's very important that you know about this particular bonus. Typically with the webinars, Sometimes I include bonus material like the PowerPoint or a supplemental guide like this one. Tonight's going to be really important to have for a variety of reasons. Number one, I have a lot of resources, as you can see listed here, and we won't be able to cover every single one, but I want you to know the titles of these resources. Now, the links are to the physical book if you own it or not. So if you click on it and the book doesn't open up, that means you don't have the book, and that's a quick and easy way for them to go to Logos store, copy and paste the title in there, and you can find the book at LearnLogos.com. So great number of resources there. And then we're going to go into some various things, and I have all the links to the various search tools that we're going to be using tonight. So very helpful. It's a several page document, and I think you'll really appreciate that. So take advantage of that, and that comes free with the download. So let's begin right away with the two types of biographies, and let me just go ahead into Logos and get ourselves started. There's really two types, and that is there's biographies that of individuals in the Bible, like Paul the Apostle, Joseph, Jesus, etc. And then there's biographies of individuals outside the Bible. That might be famous Christians, martyrs, missionaries, etc. And so we really need to understand those two different worlds and the resources that are associated with them. So let's start off first with overviewing some key resources for people in the Bible, and then we'll move to people outside the Bible. And I'm just going to highlight a few from every section. So let me open up a couple of these key resources, and again, the complete list will be in the supplemental document, so you'll have that for you. So let's talk about Bible dictionaries. The first one that I think everyone should have is the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary, and you're going to see why right away, why this one's so important. Because if you look at it, here's Paul, and right away we find out who he is, we get his Greek name, and we get some quick background. But this is what makes the Anchor Bible so powerful, is that we have this wonderful outline, the sources of the information, his life, his image and later sources, the chronology, what are some of the issues we need to deal with when we try to date his letters and date his life, and then on his theology, what does Paul believe? Resources like the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary bring all that biblical information and scholarship together in one place, making it easier for you to get a quick understanding of who Paul is, the life he led, what he believed, and the circumstances and events in his life. So the Anchor Yale is a great place to start. Now, many of you probably have the Tyndale. That's another good resource that's available. So let me go ahead and open that and just do it the old-fashioned way, and we'll just put in Tyndale Dictionary. Okay, and here we go. And so here's another good example how this dictionary organizes the information. Notice that this is a chronological approach. His family, his education, how he starts off as a persecutor and then moves through his life to his final years in martyrdom. That kind of layout is so helpful when you're trying to understand an individual. Now, I like these resources because they give you little facts. It's just nice. Author of 13 New Testament epistles. They're summarizing all this information. They're giving you key references to where these facts can be found. And if you use tools like the Power Lookup, let me just do that for a moment. Tools, Power Lookup, you can get a list of those references as you're reading along the way. So this can make life so much easier when you're trying to do a biographical study, especially if it's someone you're not very familiar with, or if it's someone like Paul where there's just so much information to know. Now, a couple of the resources in the dictionary I think are important to bring out that you may not be aware of is, for example, the Holman Illustrated Bible Dictionary. So here's Paul, and we got his early life and training, so that we've got AD 1 through 35. We talk about his Roman citizenship, and then I'm just going to scroll down. And the one thing I like about the Holman Bible or Illustrated Bible Dictionary is sometimes you get things like this, little images and pictures, which are great to show people in a Sunday school or even in a pulpit in a sermon. And this is the colonnade Arcadian way of Ephesus, the city that became Paul's home for over 2 years. So pretty neat look into the past there of where Paul had actually walked and so forth. So wonderful resources to take advantage of. I recommend the Ehrman's, the Baker Encyclopedia. Let me open up that one. Let's take a look at Encyclopedia. A little bit different organization, but again, basically the same information. So here we have Paul, his background, date of birth, and if we scroll down, we can see some other information. In fact, I'm going to open the table of contents just to make things a little bit easier. And so we can see here at the left the background and conversion, early ministry, ministry in Asia Minor and Syria, ministry in Macedonia, Achaia, his third missionary journey, and his imprisonment and death. So this one really focuses on the geographical locations where he went. And Peter just had a quick question. He says, isn't this a liberal book? Great question, Peter. And one of the things that's nice about dictionaries, especially when it comes to biographies, is if there is any liberal tendencies, this is one area where they really can't do much. None of them are going to outright deny the books and Logos. Very few, I don't know of any really, that outright deny who Paul is, though they may deny which letters he wrote, and they may alter what they believe his theology is. But when it comes down to the facts and archaeological information, you're going to find out very quickly that they're going to resonate with most of the resources. And this is why I stress that you need to have more than one dictionary. In fact, I would even suggest having some liberal resources, not because you want to imbibe their doctrine, but you want to have it as a way to counter, so that you can think through the issues and understand where the arguments are, what information is up for debate. Because when you see a resource like a liberal resource that it agrees with the conservative, then you know that's not an issue that you need to argue over. But if you see where something is in contest, where there is a potential argument, then that can be very helpful in refining your own thinking to make sure you have thought through and that you can address those issues. So great. And yeah, the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary can be quite liberal in places as well. Matthew has a comment here. I'd like to say something about liberal books. We need to read those books from our conservative perspective to know what they believe. We can make a proper defense of our beliefs without knowing theirs. Absolutely well said, and that's exactly the vein in which I was going, Matthew. And again, if you're not comfortable with that, then stay away from those resources. But if you've got some good conservative resources, balance it out with some liberals, and make sure you understand exactly what they're saying. I knew what you meant, Matthew, so you're good to go. Wonderful, and that's a great point to bring up. And by having several resources, you'll be able to see what facts are in agreement and what facts are being contested. And that'll help you major on the majors and minor on the minors. One other resource that you may not be aware of is something that Logos has produced called the Lexham Bible Dictionary. And this is Logos's kind of own content-driven resource. And so here you have Paul, and you'll notice it's very similar to the other resources. So there's Paul, there's the introduction, here's his biographical data. We've got some chronological issues. You'll notice you've got some wonderful charts. This is really handy to see the different books, and this is one reason why I wanted to bring up this resource. So here's the letters. We can see, different cross-references, why he's, saying that and so forth. So it's very helpful. And then if we scroll down, I'll just you can see it's a pretty big chart showing you the different cities he went to and the verses it tells us there. Got some dates in there as well. So this is really cool because you got this great list of all the cities Paul went to all in one chart. Down here you've got the dating and authorship of the Pauline letters, so you can get some nice dates here and then compare those to other resources, which makes it a lot of fun. You'll see that most of these books will agree, but they'll be within a couple years range. Then we've got some other things like psychological observations. You'll have to read that to see what they mean by that. But you got things like Packer and Moo and Dunn and others being mentioned in here. Then you've got Pauline theology and some key cross-references. And then Paul talks about monotheism, salvation, resurrection. So now we're getting to the various doctrines. In fact, let me open up the table of contents here. We can see even more without scrolling down. And so there it is. And you've got the topics, various schools of thought, and even a bibliography at the end, which is really helpful if you want to even go further beyond your Logos library. And anything that's highlighted, usually that means that Logos will give you the ability to copy that style or may even link to the book itself, which is a pretty cool feature. Okay, so those are some of the key resources. Now, one other feature I want to show you with this that just comes in handy. So let's take the Holman Illustrated Bible Dictionary. If you press the right or left arrow keys in your computer, you can begin to cycle through all your dictionaries. So here I have Paul, and now I'm at the MacArthur Topical Bible. And if I hit the right arrow again, I'm now at the Encyclopedia of Christianity. And if I go right again, I'm at the Holman New Testament Commentary. So anytime Paul is the main subject, or a book is indexed by English names or English topics, and Paul is one of those topics, simply pressing the right or left arrow will allow you to forward through all those resources. Now, I'll show you other ways to do this, but I did want to at least stop here and let you see that. Now, we've been doing this on Paul, and again, right's taking me one direction, left kind of takes me back, vice versa. Now, let's take the Baker Encyclopedia where it says Paul the Apostle, and I'm now going to hit the right arrow. Now I've got Paul the Apostle again, and now I've got Paul. So notice that Logos is smart to link these books up where Paul or Paul the Apostle is mentioned. And do you have to have the sync on to keep in topic? No, you do not. If what you're referring to, Sandra, is we could link these resources. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to click up here on the resource panel and choose link set F, just for the fun of it, because we use A and B for other things. And so now I've got these two resources synced up. And so now if I were to, scroll through one, it's not going to affect it, but where it makes a difference is if I change person. So if I type in Jesus, now the Nelson's New Illustrated Bible Dictionary will change. So the synchronization or linking up is only important if you change your topic. If you're simply using your arrow keys to move right and left, then you don't need any syncing, and all the resources with that particular name, like Paul, will be kind of rotated through. And very, very helpful. Okay, and not sure what you mean there on the second comment, Sandra, so if you can clarify that, we'll come back. All right, so that's the Bible dictionaries. And again, I'm going to take a little time to go through some resources, because if you're going to do biographical studies, you want to build a library with the right resources. So the next topic, or next set of books, are encyclopedias. Now, I did include the Baker in the previous one, but I want to hit a few others here. Here's the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia Revised. And you can see here what encyclopedia is doing. It really is quite detailed. I mean, that's the purpose of an encyclopedia, to go even more further than a detailed dictionary. So we've got, Acts of the Apostles, the epistles, problems in Paul's, the different things, the life and ministry. Quite a bit of information in the ISBE for Paul. I mean, 7 sections. Another good resource is the Wycliffe Bible Encyclopedia. And again, let me expand the table of contents on that one so we can see the depth and breadth there. So there's Paul, and then we can just scroll down and you can see that there's several pages of information on Paul. And there's his conversion, etc. This next one is pretty neat. This one surprised me. I forgot that I had this resource until I started going through. And so this is the Encyclopedia of Christianity. It's 4 volumes. And this is kind of a more academic resource. And so you got your sources, your history, your missionary work, death, theology, influence. And again, quite a bit of information. The one thing that the Encyclopedia of Christianity does is it links you to topics within topics. So if you're talking about the New Testament canon, you can float your mouse, jump to another article in this encyclopedia set, and now you can read about the canon. So that cross-referencing can really help you understand a lot more, like the topic of apostle. What is an apostle? And how is that identified, and so forth. So very good resource. Sandra is now specifying, she says, I'm talking about, do you have to have the visual filter set to link to open panels? You can if you want, but it really won't be very helpful unless, of course, you're in a particular passage. And so let me demonstrate what Sandra's saying. So let me go ahead and open up a Bible here. And I'm going to go to Acts 16:12. All right. And notice that as soon as I typed in Acts 16:12, the passage, Acts 16:12, got highlighted with a visual filter. And Sandra brings up a great point, which I'm glad you did to remind the audience and myself, that having the links to open panels means that if you're in a Bible dictionary and the passage you're studying, Acts 16:12, is open, it's going to be highlighted for you. drawing attention to you, giving you a visual cue to let you know that your passage is mentioned in the article. Now you may be wondering, how do you turn this on? Well, it's done right up here with these 3 circles. So I'm going to click on the 3 circles, and there it is, links to open panels. And when it comes to dictionaries, I typically like to have those opened. I just haven't had the encyclopedia open at the time, and so I hadn't checked that box. And so